for you, probably for me too. But anyhow, Lorna blessed our life unexpectedly when we got a phone call and said, Lorna's on the plane. She's left Guam this morning, and she'll be in DIA at 9 something that evening. And I was gone to, I think, a men's retreat in Maranatha, so Linda went up and met her. And that's the story. I can't go on hardly, but... Anyhow, Lorna and Hank and Ashley came to live with us for a few weeks, about 4 or 5 weeks. Needed a place to regroup and reboot. And so Lorna's been working for Mark and his crew, and Ashley and Lorna would be in our basement doing their work. And the praise choruses, they would sing in harmony, came up the stairs and into our family room. And those, I would like to know what happened to the people that got those chips or whatever. I think something happened there, but anyhow, what a blessing. Linda and I sit there thinking, wow, are we blessed or what to have this? And so things kept progressing and doing very well. Lorna and Hank and Ashley were rebooting. The Lord was in their progress. And I just said, Lorna, sometime you have to share this with the church. And so finally she said she would. But now she's afraid, as you can imagine. But I guarantee you, you'll be blessed, and I'm glad you came. Lorna, come on up here. And we'll see, make sure everything works good for you.
Sorry. It's on. You okay, Grandpa Bill?
I'll get it. I'll figure that out for you.
I could just put it down. Yeah. This thing right here is pretty intimidating. Like Mr. Bill said, we went and stayed with them to reboot. And God did amazing things in a short amount of time. And my testimony today is about, it's actually it's a testimony of God's grace in my life. Sorry, I get emotional easily. So when we were rebooting with Mr. Bill and Miss Linda, God answered a lot of our prayers. I mean, I had no power. My brother had no power over all those things. God answered it. And so we were able to get on our feet. So when Mr. Bill said, hey, you really need to share these things, I said, well, let me pray about it, you know. So I prayed about it, and on the way to get my house, I said, Lord, okay. I felt the Lord was telling me, you share. So I said, all right, I could do that. So I went back to him and said, I'll share. And then as I'm going back and forth, I work for Mark, and I said, well, this is how I'm going to share it. And the Lord said, no, I want you to share it this way. And I said, oh, no, I'm going to share it this way. Let's talk about your glory. How about that? And he said, no, I want you to talk about this. And so my story, it starts, and bear with me, it's God's grace in my life. So I grew up on this beautiful island of Chuuk, and I'm actually half from Chuuk and from Saipan. My mom's from Saipan, and my dad is from Chuuk. So when I was born, they sent me to my aunt, who was my father's sister. And she raised me with her husband. And my grandfather and my father, adopted father, they were my life. They were the center of my world. So I had a sister, and she was closer to my mom. I was more closer to my dad. And I would go fishing with my dad, and then I would go farming with my grandfather. So at in this lifestyle, we don't have lights. You know, we live in huts, and we're just starting to grow into a modern world. So those things I didn't know about, and people might think we're poor, but I thought we were pretty rich. I mean, I was happy, you know. So, like I said, I enjoyed fishing with my dad, and then I would enjoy farming with my grandfather. And so my parents have this thing where they have to wake up before the sun rise. So before my dad would go to work, they would give us showers at 4 in the morning, you know, early. And then my mom would fix my hair and she would put this dress on me. But my dad didn't have a boy. He had 2 girls, me and my sister. So he kind of treated me like a boy. So I don't know, I just kind of felt like, you know, I could climb this tree and I could do that, you know, the kind of boy stuff. So as soon as my dad was gone, I would take off my dress and have my shorts, and I would run with my grandfather, and we go farming. And that upset my mom, but that's how I was growing up. I was pretty happy. I was stable. I was loved. My father and my grandfather, they were kind, and they were loving, and they were gentle and humble people. And my grandfather was the chief of the town, so of the village. So whenever he farmed, and I loved this part about it, whenever he farmed, I would take it, and before I take it home, I would go door to door, and each villagers would take their share. They would never take more than their share. And then when my dad would go fishing, I would do the same thing too. So it was a beautiful community for me to grow up in. And then my grandfather passed away. I was 8 years old, and my biological mother came and she took me back. And she took me to the island of Guam. That's where I met my brother, my cousin. He's my cousin, but I call him my brother, you know, he's my best friend. And I think I was about 11, I think he was about 9. And he has this spirit about him. He was so kind and gentle. So I attached myself to him. And this new environment was different than what I grew up with. And it was a shock to me. There was different kind of abuse going on. My father was an alcoholic, and that kind of made him go in and out of a lot of lifestyle, caused my mother to be really depressed. And so, you know, it kind of caused a lot of things going on. So that was a shock to me. But before I left Chuk, my adopted dad, I got on that plane. He said, I'm going to come and get you. And so I said, okay. And when I went there, I waited. And as I'm living in this environment of abuse, this thing called fear kind of took hold. But I waited, and I waited for my dad to come and get me, but he never could. Later on, I understood later on as I became an adult that he wasn't able to do it because my biological mother wouldn't allow him to. But that kind of gave me the feeling of rejection, you know? So I'm growing up here and I meet this woman named Cindy Johnson. And she's a nurse at my school. I couldn't speak English or understand it, so the teacher sent me to Cindy Johnson, who's the nurse. I don't know why. I don't understand why, but I went there and that's where I spent my time, and thank God for that because I fell in love with her, she fell in love with me. And she brought me to Colorado about, maybe I was 10 or 11, and that's where I met Bill and Linda Fees. And when I met Bill and Linda Fees, he was kind, and he was gentle, he was humble, and he was really loving. And that reminded me of something, so I attached myself to him. So that summer was beautiful, and I went back to the island, went back to my family, and the abuse continued. And other abuse got introduced, and that fear began to grow even more. It began to grow a hold on me. So one day I ran to this corner. I got really desperate. I was 15, and I ran to this corner, and I sat down. There's a window right beside me, and I said, God, hey, if you're there, I had the biggest faith at that moment. And I said, if you're there, I want you to make me disappear from this spot. And put me in a home that's loving and caring. And the wind blew on my face, And I didn't want to open my eyes because reality is I'm still there. And pretty soon the knock on the door come, and so I open my eyes, I get up. I was pretty disappointed. So I go to the door, and there was two men standing there, and they were wearing white, and they were from the Mormon church. And they wanted to come in, so I said, okay. So they come in, and they speak to my dad and my mother, and they changed. They went to church with the Mormon church, at the Mormon church, and they changed. And I thought, whoa, my God, you answered my prayer. And that was like in seconds, so I started diving into this Mormon church, and it didn't take long before my parents revert back to the way they were. I just started trying to search for this God, hey, was that you, or what was that, so I met up with Cindy Johnson again, and I was 18 years old. And I was about to be shipped off to Chicago to be a nanny for the Mormons. And Cindy said, oh no, we're not going to do that. So she's kind of a shaker and a mover, and that's where Mr. Bill was talking about. In one day, I was on the plane flying to Colorado. So when I came to Colorado, I was pretty fearful. I didn't trust anybody. I was pretty broken. And gosh, whew. I lived with Mr. Bill and Miss Linda. On the plane, this fear kind of took a hold of me because I thought, what if they're not the same people? But I came and they were. And I watched them and I saw how they loved, and I saw them come to church. They brought me to church, and there was so much love. And there was something different though. They loved God. But at this point in my life, I was a pretty angry person. And I'm kind of holding everything in, and they would talk about God, and they love this God, they got it, and I just thought, you got to be crazy. I mean, seriously, you're crazy. Why would you love a God that took your son from you? Why would you love a God that allowed you so much pain? And Miss Linda, she was pretty intimate with her God, and they loved me through it, where I kind of found myself again. And I think as a child, I had a really strong will, and that helped me through those abuse, I think. But it also would be my downfall. So I lived with them, and I'm thinking, well, no. And they would share with me, and I would look at them, and I would say, yeah, uh-huh. And then I would move on. And I tell myself, no. I don't understand your type of love, that type of love. I knew they took me in and they loved me, and that was amazing to me. But I could not understand the love that they were talking about, God, So one day we went to NJC to an Easter, and I've been living with them for a while, and there's no violence, it's peaceful and everything. And it was the Easter, and this guy is playing Jesus, and he walks down the aisle, and they're beating him, and he's holding the cross. And that stirred something deep inside of me, and I was so angry. And I thought, what a stupid show. Why would you be hitting people? Who wants to see that? And Miss Linda kind of realized that I was really upset. On the way back, I told them, that's a stupid show. And she explained the meaning of the cross to me. And as I'm listening, I'm still really hard in my heart and angry. And we go home, and, God is trying to talk to me, and I'm rejecting him. I didn't want him. And the morning comes, and they're having a Easter sunrise service, and there's a cross outside. And I didn't want to join him. I just had to go because they're my parents, and they're forcing me to go. But God revealed himself to me that day that I could not ignore. So I sat down on the edge of the bed. He showed me the cross, and what Miss Linda explained to me now made sense. And I sat down on the bed, and I said, no, I don't want you. I want you to explain to me first your love. Why would you allow me to go through that pain? And he said, I love you. And I said, why would you allow these people to hurt me? Why? And he said, I love them. And I said, you should have loved me more. And this conversation go on between me and God, and he finally showed me how much he loved me. And I said, okay, I want this. I want a new thing. I don't want to carry this no more, so I want it. So I accepted Christ as my Savior. And I went out to the Easter service, and the Berean people were there. And I looked around, and I saw so much love among them, so much love. And I said, okay, God, I'm on this road with you. I want this. Show me how to do it. And so as I grew in the Lord, time went by, God started revealing himself to me in real way that I could not ignore. In miracles, as I was in India and in places, he made himself known to me like I asked, make it clear to me. But there was something that I did not give God in that moment. That was my will. I wanted to control my life. I wanted to control it. I was kind of riding the fence, and I said, you control this and I'll control this, and And so that kind of comes with the trust. You kind of have to trust him with everything. Not just one piece, you have to trust him with everything. So as I'm living my life and God is trying to direct me this direction, I go this direction. I get pregnant out of wedlock with my daughter, Madison. And again, it was another way of God speaking to me, making his love known to me, because I've never felt a love like that before. And it was beautiful. I said, God, this is amazing. My baby's growing inside of me. I've always tried to fit into somewhere, but it's right here. It's beautiful, and it's growing, and it's mine, and I belong to her, and she belongs to me. And then God took Madison. And that opened a whole new can of worms for me. And that threw me into depression. And it was like I had it, and then it was snatched. And I said, are you punishing me? Because I did what I wanted to. But God doesn't punish. Just so you know, his grace is amazing. But at that time, I didn't understand that. So I got pregnant with my daughter, Ashley, and that pregnancy was different than Madison, because I was living in this thing called fear again. And I was so afraid that God was going to take her from me too. So that pregnancy was really difficult. And that depression, I fell into depression that was so deep and dark, and it was so hard for me to get out of it. And when my daughter came, Ashley, God gave Ashley to me. And I thank him every day for that. And I was stuck in my depression, and there goes my will again. I'm straddling the fence. So as I'm raising my daughter, Ashley, I'm straddling the fence, giving God some and holding on to some, and I finally get out of this depression, and my daughter, Ashley, she's growing up into a beautiful child, and she starts sports. And I couldn't meet everything. I couldn't go to college, go to work, and go to her sports at the same time to pick her up. So my brother Hank, he's sitting right there. I know him as Enrique. And I've been searching for him because he's the only person in that part on my mom's side of the family that was gentle and was kind. So I've been searching for him, but I couldn't find him, And there was this guy on my Facebook, inbox, and his name was Hank. And he added me about 3 years ago or something before I called him. And I didn't add him because I don't add anybody I don't know. I have my daughter on there. So I'm in this desperate situation where I'm needing some help with my daughter. And somehow I go there and I message. I saw this person and I said, well, it has to be somebody I know. I better message. So I messaged him and I said, hey, do I know you? Because you added me about, a while ago, and I don't mean to be rude, but I don't know who you are. And he said, it's me, Henry. That's what I call him. And I said, where have you been? I've been looking for you. And he said, in your inbox. So I prayed about it. We kind of got connected, and he was the same person to me. He was still kind and gentle. So one point, I prayed and I said, God, do you want me to give up my school? Do you want me to give up what? What do you want me to do? So he said, ask Enrique to come and help you. And I said, well, I don't know about that. Well, how's that going to work? Just ask. So I get up, it's about 3 in the morning or so, and I'm thinking he's going to be sleeping. And I message him and I said, hey, I'm going to tell you something, and it might sound crazy, but would you come here? And I explained, I need help with my daughter, and would you come here to help me? And he said, I'll be there. And he's been here ever since. And when he came, he picked up my daughter, and he loved her, and he raised her right beside me. And that was a blessing from God. But here's Lorna on her fence, still straddling this fence. And I was growing, and I was teaching my daughter about God. But at the same time, I really, really wanted to try these things. But you really can't have two masters really in your life. You either have God or you don't. You have to choose him. And so I go through some stuff, and I tell my brother, well, let's go to Denver. Let's go to Denver, and it's more money. We can survive there, and he didn't want to. I didn't ask God, because I knew he was going to say no. So I spoke to Miss Linda and Mr. Bill, and they said, no, that is not a good idea. Well, I did it anyway. I uprooted my family, and I moved them to Denver. And that was a bad move, because that opened a new avenue for me, kind of my playground. And so I dabbled, and it made it easier to dabble because I had a brother who was watching my daughter. And before he came, I really didn't do much. So when he came, I felt free, that I could go play. And I did. And I introduced a lot of things into my daughter's life. And it shocked her, just like I had a shock when I moved to my biological parent. My daughter had a shock. And God showed me in my daughter's eyes that she was hurting, and this was not the place for her. So God led me back to Sterling, and my brother went back with my daughter because I was still holding on. See, and I talked my brother into saying, well, let me keep this job, and then you go back, and you find a job, and then I'll come and I'll find a job. And so he said, I don't think that's a good idea, Lorna. Let's just go. And I said, no, you go first. So he goes. See how faithful he is? He's amazing. So he goes back with my daughter, and I'm in Denver doing my thing. And I'm going to work. And God takes everything from me. And he's kind of telling me, I told you to go to Sterling. And I lose my car. I lose my place. So I'm having to walk to work from, Peoria onto Pena and to my work at the airport. So it got pretty hot sometimes. And so I cut out this cardboard to be my hat, and I put it on my head, and I would walk on Pena to get to my work. And at this time, I'm not able to see my daughter, not even the 2 weekends that I would go because I had lost my car. And I'm walking on Pena, and it's pretty hot. The cement is hot, and it's burning my legs, but up here it's not burning, And I'm saying, Lord, I really want to hear from you. I want to do what you want to do, what you want me to do. And he said, you see how hot that is down there? That's your choices. But right here is where the shadow is. Come underneath my shadow. Come underneath my wings. It's safer there. And I said, okay, all right, then I'm afraid if I go back, I won't find a job. And he said, just go back to Sterling. So I did. I went back to Sterling. My brother was working at this job, $10 an hour. And I started looking for jobs, and it was really difficult to find a job. And I finally find one, and they were replacing me with another woman. So as I'm there mopping the floor, and they're firing this woman in there, and I'm really excited about this new job, And They're firing this woman, and she's in there crying. And she's talking about her kids. And she's talking about how her life, how's she going to take care of her kids, you know? And God said, while I'm mopping this floor, he says, give her your job. And I said, hey, you brought me back here, and then here's this job, and I'm mopping the floor, you know, versus what I used to do before, and you want me to give this up? And he said, give her your job. She needs it more than you do. And she doesn't have a brother like you. And I brought you your brother so he can hold it up for a while. And I said, hey, no. I told God, no, let's do it my way this time. And he said, who would you be if you keep this job? So I go in there and I tell them, hey, I just opened the door and this girl is crying. And I said, you know, I resign and you can give her my job. And the manager stands up and she said, hey, we talked about this. And I said, I know. And you need to talk to the Lord, because I talked to the Lord and he wants her to have my job. And so I walk out and I go home and I said, what am I going to tell my brother? You know, and I'm pretty scared that I'm going to walk in there and he's going to say, are you crazy? So I walk in there, and this is how beautiful my brother is. He's my best friend. And I said, hey, bro, don't be mad, but I resigned from my job. And he said, you'll find another one. So he's praying, and this man believed in Zeus before, but he's believing in God now. And he's praying, and I'm praying, and you think things get better, but they don't. Everything gets taken away, our house, our car, and everything. God took everything. Maybe God didn't take everything, but it just got taken. And we ended up moving into this house, my brother's friend, and it was a pretty challenging situation for my daughter, for my brother, and for me. And he was the only one working. I'm looking for a job left and right. I can't. And finally, I get really frustrated. And I'm listening to this song. And I'm going to have Barry play it for you.
Almighty, infinite Father, faithfully loving your own. Here in our weakness you find us, falling before your throne. Oh, we're falling before your throne. You are the one that we praise. You are the one we adore.
So I was listening to that song, and I said, hey God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I've chosen my way, but look, you gave me my daughter, you gave me my brother, and they're suffering. And if it's all because of my choice, forgive me. And you brought me back to Sterling, and I listened, and I'm back. And it didn't get better, it got worse. And I said, I want you to make it clear to me. I won't move. The plan was, my daughter was going to go and stay with Grandma and Grandpa Bill because Hank got frustrated with the job that he was having, and he came and he said, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Denver, and I'm going to work at the airport, and then I'm going to come back on the weekends. And you and Ashley go to Grandma and Grandpa Bill, and then we can get our house faster. And I said, okay, that sounds like a plan, but what I'll do is I'm going to go to Sterling, and I can live at the park until I find a job. And he said, I don't think you should do that. I don't care. I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. But that night, I was listening to this song, and I said, God, this is what I'm going to do if you don't talk to me. Loud and clear, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my daughter to Mr. Bill and Miss Linda, then I'm going to go live at the park till I find a job. Because I can. I did that in Denver. I can do it again. So make it clear to me where I should go and what I should do. And I lay down. I hadn't slept for a couple of days, and maybe 5 minutes into my sleep, the phone rings. And it's the voice of the Lord through Grandma Linda. And she said, do you want a job? And I said, all right, that's loud. And I hang up the phone. I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I hang up the phone, and I look at my daughter who's sitting there. She's staring at me. And I said, I'm supposed to be in Hexton. And she said, I've been telling you this whole time. And I said, okay. So I come to Hexton, and I'm pretty broken by this time. And I said, God, speak to me, because I'm having a hard time hearing you. And it could possibly be because I'm not into you. You know, I'm doing my own thing. And Mr. Bill introduced me to Robert Morris. And when I was watching him, I thought, oh, I need to hear more. So I was pretty hungry. So I run downstairs, and I put Robert Morris on. And my question was, make things clear to me so I hear you loud and clear. And I said, what's my next step, Lord? And so Robert Morris was talking, and he said, many people come to the Lord, and they say, Lord, Lord. And he said, I don't know you. You know, and that right kind of fear now take place in my heart. And I said, Lord, Robert Morris said, you have to submit your will to God. You know, you have to really give him your will, and then you have to let him direct your step. You know, so I can't straddle the fence no more? No. So I said, okay, I'm ready now. Just be the Lord of my life, because I've made a big mess being the Lord of my life. So you be the Lord of my life. And so we don't have a home, we don't have a car. I now have a job, though. So, and it's an amazing job. Beautiful people, you know. And so I ask again, Lord, how do I hear you again? I want to hear you. I just want to be in you, because I made a mess, and it's dangerous for my family when I make decisions. So Robert Morris, I keep listening to him again, and he said, many people ask me, his message was the voice of God. So I said, that'd be a good one to listen to. So I click on it, and I'm listening to it. And Robert Morris says, set an appointment. Set an appointment to meet with the Lord. And then he said, people ask him, you know, ask me, where do I read in the Bible? And that's exactly what I was asking. Where do I read in the Bible? And Robert Morris said, in the Bible. So I said, okay, I'll start there. But one thing he encouraged was to journal. And I've always seen Miss Linda journal before. And I never understood it. So I just dove into the Word, and I dove into, you know, writing down. But that was not it, too. I had no control over my situation, and I said, God, I got 0, but nothing on earth moves without your permission. So I give it to you. And God took it. And after I tell him I gave him my will, he said, okay, I take it. I'll take it. And I started worshiping. And we go to this Bible study at Dottie's house. And can't remember the lady who was speaking, but she talks about the season of your life. When it's raining, praise the Lord, sing to the Lord. And that's what I've been doing before. But I thought, okay, let's do that. And Robert Morris said, dive into the Word. Even if you have this big storm right in front of you, start praising the Lord and start thanking the Lord. So that's what I started doing. I just started singing my heart out. And when the fear would come, I just started singing. And I just started praising the Lord. And my brother came, and we were talking, and I was telling him about this change that I've seen. I felt this power. And then he told me that he just accepted Christ last year. And that opened my eyes. And guys, spiritual warfare is as real. But God is more powerful than all that. And we need to understand to come against it with the power of Christ. And so when I looked at him, I thought, why didn't you tell me that? And he's such a quiet man that he don't talk. You have to get him going, And he said, I don't know, I was just desperate. I was in a place, and Mr. Bill kept talking, and you keep talking, and he was the only one I had, so I gave it to him. And God kind of told me, you're in this spiritual warfare. Let me fight it for you. So after he told me that, I dug deeper, and I said, Lord, take anything, any grounds I have given Satan in my life, in my daughter's life, in my brother's life, and with your power, you take it away. And he did. And Mr. Bill wanted me to share because it had nothing to do with my power. I didn't get my house. We didn't have a house. And in my journal, I specifically asked the Lord, please give me my house before my daughter starts school, 1 week before she starts school. He gave me my house 1 week before my daughter starts school. I asked for the car. We had no money. And he brought a blessing through Mark and Dottie and their business, and we were able to get our car. My brother was going to go to Denver to get a job and work in Denver, but this time I'm giving the Lord, and I'm asking Lord, should I go here? Is this where I should go? And if it doesn't feel right, I told him, I don't know. I'm feeling a little weird about this because you're going to be so tired going there and coming back every single day. So God provided another job that's 3 times better than going to Denver. And when I saw that job, I told him, I said, hey, that's your job. That's the job that the Lord's going to give you. And he said, well, I don't know. We're just going to have to pray about it. And I told him, no, that's the job. And he's waiting for them to call him, and he's getting a little discouraged. And I said, bro, no, that's the job for you. And the same day that we got that job, and he heard about that job, is the same day that we saw our house. And we had been looking for houses, and everybody's been turning us down. And we went to this lady, and she's the one who told us about the job that my brother has now. And as we get in the car and we're driving, I told my brother, that's your job. That's the job that the Lord has for you. And as we drove around the corner, there's a house for rent. And I said, and that's our house. And he said, well, we'll see, And I said, no, that's our house. And we looked at other houses that was cheaper, and we were starting to go towards the one that was cheaper. But I told him, the Lord is going to close that door. Because the house on 210 Logan is our new home. And that new home we're going to use to serve the Lord, to love. And the big difference in my life is giving my will to the Lord. And sometimes we all get in this pit, in this deep, dark place. And God's grace amazes me that he was there right there the whole time. And Dottie has these songs, and it all has to do with God's grace and God's love and faithfulness. And my story is his story. He's the power of his grace and the power of his love in my life. I had a hold on me and I had a bond on me, but Christ broke it, and it took me to give up my will to do that, because that's the beautiful thing, isn't it? He gave us the free will to choose. And I don't deserve his love. I don't deserve his grace. But yet, he chose me when I rejected him. And when I had nothing, he gave me everything. So, God is amazing. God is great. And if anybody ever go through that stage, just start singing and to him and just start thanking him. Because sometimes we forget his presence in our life, but he's there, and he's real. Thank you. Sorry. That was too much crying.
Before you say that, though, I just want to thank you. There's a book, John Allender is the author. He talks about that we're unique. We're always on the stage in our life. You just look at your life, and you're always on the stage. But God brings other people to be the main character at times. And, we just need to humble ourselves with each other. And a couple years ago, we had a young man come and live in our home. And Mark, you told me, you said, I don't know how you could do that. I couldn't do that. Well, right now, you're the most important person almost in her life right now as far as on the stage. And, thank you. And I'd just like for you to close us in prayer because you've been a real instrument in Bill and Linda have, and a lot of people. Hank, we just really thank you for standing in there with them. Could you close us in prayer, please?
We just thank you today for this great, powerful testimony. Lord, I know it spoke to me, it spoke to everyone here. We just thank you. We thank you for what you're doing in Lorna's life, what you've done in her life. We know, God, you're going to continue in Hank and Lorna's life and with Ashley. And we praise you for that, God. And we thank you. We thank you for your grace that's available to every one of us. We thank you for your mercy, for your love. Great is your faithfulness, God, and we thank you for that so much. Now, I pray that you go with us, you leave here, be with us today and this week. We'll give you the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.